Hello, everybody, and welcome to the new series of Balance Talk, where me and the guest are talking about several things concerning the balance. And today I have with me Luke.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for being here, Luke. And yeah, the purpose of the series is to discuss certain balance topics, like in a focused way, and also maybe give our own thoughts. What you think? Why is it too strong or too weak? And how could you improve the situation? Whatever. And today, the topic we would like to talk about are Archer Clumps in 4.5.3 because currently Archer Clumps are very strong in general, and there are not too many counterplays against it. And yeah, I think that's the general gist about it. And do you agree about that, Luke, or am I completely wrong here?
Yeah, of course I agree with that. I think there's nothing to deny that.
Yeah, so let's first talk about maybe what factions do have viable Archer Clump strategies right now. And I think there are quite many. There's
I,
Gondor.
I think it's better to talk which factions don't have viable Archer Clumps.
Maybe.
Maybe it's better. Yeah, I think factions who don't have an Archer Clump at the moment, it's just Enlargers, Dwarves, and maybe Mordor, and that's it at the moment.
Rohan maybe as well, also, I think.
Yeah, Rohan, and that
Rohan.
should be it actually.
Yeah, so yeah, Mordor, I guess, doesn't really need an Archer Clump to
Yeah,
be strong.
but maybe we should just talk why Archer Clump is so popular at the moment.
Yeah, so exactly. So we think it's very strong, and that's because there aren't really that many counters right now. And what have been counters in the past for Archer Clumps?
Yeah.
So
Well,
one
yeah.
big thing that's usually supposed to be strong against archers in Middle Earth is cavalry, and so that's a big thing that was nerfed recently a few times. What else is there?
Yeah, I think I watched some games of 4.5.1 recently, and if you compare the playstyle to the actual meta at the moment, it's just I think the game used to be just that you try to harass in the early game while building up a strong economy, upgrading your buildings individually. Okay, you did that with the economy system, and then you transition into late game, and then you actually in mid or late game you just build archers. But I think, yeah, you already mentioned that Kath has been nerfed, and that's, I think, a big issue why Archer Clumps have been popularized. And yeah, I think in general, clumping has been becoming way more popular because the guys, I mean, I think it has to do something with the version 4.5.2, where you just sat around in your base and didn't build any outside buildings and just were trying to get into the late game stage. And I think the people or the players just said, well, it's just I don't need to do anything. I don't need to split an army into different sides and have the hard way. It's just way more comfortable to just clump my army in one big clump and just try to get into the late game immediately. And the problem is
Yeah.
you can't punish this play style at the moment, really, because Cav has been nerfed, and in general, the counters to archers are not as strong any longer.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point, right? We had for a long time we had pretty strong a phase where in-base eco on its own could mostly compete with an opponent who had way more map than you
Exactly.
because of the inflation, and that luckily has been changed a little bit. So now it's way better, but still maybe some remains of that are in the game. And yeah, another thing, I guess, while we're at it, you can, if you're sitting in a base and building up your archer clumps, it can be very hard to punish that. I mean, you will get more money now, definitely, and I guess also in the past, and will get faster to level 3 eco. But finishing an opponent is also very hard, especially at the moment. And for example, also for, let's say, for example, Lorien against Lorien, it's also very hard, which is Lorien, of course, the quintessential Archer Clump folk.
Mm.
And sometimes I've heard of games or had games where like the opponent built an Archer Clump even after I already won the map, the entire map, and so that's another thing.
Yeah, I think also a good point is that it isn't actually the counter who is so bad. It's actually that that the archers deal so significant amount of damage against their counter. They are doing so much damage against the cavalry. I think 3 battalions of archers can beat one cavalry battalion, and in 4.5.3, cavalry doesn't one-shot archers while trampling if you put them on defensive stance.
Elite archers now, probably. Not.
Yeah, elite archers. And I mean, it's just that's the problem, I think, why the people just rush for elite archers. And I think another point is that elite archers are actually very, very cheap at the moment, especially like if you compare it to Gondor, who can get archers, if you discount them, for 420. And I think that's maybe even a bit too much. And I think,
Yeah, I think Gondor is a bit of a special case maybe right now. Gondor got their new Ranger 10s, which I'm not too fond of, to be honest. I mean, I can get the reason of like we wanted another outside building, but I mean that's a topic for another episode.
Yeah, I mean,
Gondor
I think
specifically, I think.
I think the building itself is just temporary, but the discount for the Rangers will probably remain. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
you definitely can discuss if that is necessary for Gondor at the moment.
Yeah, but like you pointed out, that's also cavalry can get killed before they reach the Archer Clump if there are too many archers, and it can be very hard for them to trample through them. Sometimes if there are that many, because they will get stuck. So yeah, in general, I guess why it is so strong is because you can get to the point of having a sizable archer army relatively comfortable, because you can't really. It's hard to finish games early most of this time. And then, like in an army versus army fight, the counters aren't really strong enough right now, I guess.
Yeah, and I think also a good point is that they trade so well because they are ranged units, obviously, and you hit the melee units, and every time you do that, you deal damage, actual damage, while getting no damage. And then you can just so easily at the moment retreat, and your opponent can do nothing if you have enough pikes, obviously. And I think that's just. I mean, Kaf used to be the finishing point. You couldn't run away if you don't have pikes, and even though you have, you might get in trouble. But that's just not a valid point any longer.
Yeah, of course. So cavalry was nerfed. What was nerfed? They get more damage.
Trample revenge, and they can't be flanked anymore.
Faster, exactly. Yeah. Another thing, and also like another thing about like having an army with many archers, you can get away with just having pikes and no swords, really, because the archers usually have do enough damage for you that you don't need the extra damage from sword units against infantry. So that makes it even easier to cover your archers if you can only can get away with only having pike melee infantry.
Yeah. So, that's actually a good point, because you don't actually need any fighting melee units. You just need tanky units that protect you from cavalry.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry.
Yeah, in 4.5, 4.1, if I remember correctly, you actually all the time Ichigondor or Isengard, you just go for Uruks and upgrade them. And when do you actually see upgraded melee units at the moment? I think you don't actually see them because you just prefer economy or then fire arrows maybe later. Or heroes maybe.
I guess, well, I think generally melee units, infantry units were already not the first one usually to get upgrades. Usually would get them to cavalry or archers first, I think, already.
Are you sure?
I mean, maybe. I mean, it depends, of course, but
yeah, on the matchup and the factions.
Yeah.
But it was a valid strategy which could be winnable.
Yeah, but yeah, I think right now, I guess that's a good point. Probably not too many. That's probably not a priority usually, except for maybe Imnatus, because Imnatus heavy armor is pretty amazing for them.
Yeah.
Just because of the way Imnatus works.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's a good point. So yeah,
Yeah.
another thing I want to quickly point out is that usually, I mean, what are the requirements for having a good archer clump? Basically, is that you should have some sort of elite archer. So you usually don't see archer clumps with normal archers, standard archers, because of that. Because of the higher range and because of the better damage and the better survivability.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously why you get elite archers is because they scale extremely well. You can, if you get a ranger battalion, for example, you can still have them in the super late game because
Yeah.
they are very, very effective. And usually in super late game, you still have a lot of archers.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Right now, unfortunately, I mean, I think the standard archers right now seem to be in a good place balance-wise. It seems to me that standard archers are somewhat usable, but definitely not too strong.
Strong, definitely no.
I mean, Lorien archers are maybe a bit of an exception.
Yeah.
They are obviously, I mean, they are also, I mean, I like Lorien archers, the basic Lorien archers, where they are at the beginning of the match. They can, because I think Lorien, I mean, without that, Lorien would be a little bit less boring if you wouldn't have usable archers in the beginning. But I guess they scale up too much or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's another point. But I actually don't think that Lorien archers are too strong at the moment.
Yeah.
They don't.
Not
They still don't
necessarily.
scale. Maybe.
Like, I think in general, we can come to the consensus that the main problem is maybe it's partly like the way eco works or the way sieging is so hard,
Yeah.
but mostly the balance, the counters being too weak.
Yes. And I think the last point is that it's actually so easy at the moment to micro them. Because if you say you have calf, you have pikes, you have swords, you all need to micro them somewhat. You need to micro calf in order to not lose them to pikes instantly. But in 4.1.1, or it's still a point, you have the opportunity to dictate the game. You force your opponent to clump and you can get the map. But it's just not as strong as it was anymore. You still because calf, I'm not actually sure the normal calf, it doesn't scale that well at the moment, I think. Because the archers deal so much damage, they just get wrecked over time. I mean, if you watch the final of the mini tournament between me and Yoyo, and
Yeah.
if you watch the Gondor versus Angmar game, he went for normal calf, and they just got wrecked so hard by the elite archers of Khan Doom.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, if in comparison to the Archer Clump, you just need to aim move and watch that your pikes are in S maybe,
Yeah,
and
I
just watch
mean,
that your pikes are in
exactly.
position, and you easy win.
Yeah, I mean, you usually don't use the pikes too much in combat outside of covering from cavalry.
And I want to quote a very good Elaine player: Q and S, and you are a micro god.
So yeah, I think we can pretty conclusively say that the Archer Clumps are definitely too strong, and why they are too strong. So not much controversy there today, but let's get to what do we think, what you can improve about it. So
Should I begin?
huh? What?
Do you want to begin, or should I begin?
You can start, I think.
I can start. Okay.
Yes.
Well, definitely, as I already mentioned, that they just deal too much damage to their counter, and I think that definitely should be nerfed. Calf should have more armor against them. They shouldn't be as effective. I mean, they should still do damage, but yeah, I think that's one point. Another point is probably that they definitely should be one-shotted because I think it's already not OP that you get one-shotted because if you don't watch out, you also have to be punished, and it's not That's, well, if you have like a little life point and you still survive and have full HP, because that doesn't affect their damage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean,
It-
Archer health is a little bit like, I mean, that's one thing that kind of goes against standard archers as well, which is a little bit, they get one shot and elite archers usually don't.
Yeah.
Which, you know, which makes standard archers, I guess, usually more dangerous and more harder to use than elite archers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I said, but I said standard archers are pretty decent right now, I guess. I don't know. But
Mhm.
one thing that I think about elite archers that should be nerfed, maybe should be nerfed, is the range. Maybe not of standard archers, I don't know, but I think that's not necessary. But elite archers, maybe.
I think that's actually a good point, that elite archers should have less range than the normal archers in order to make maybe the standard archers.
No, I didn't say less range. I mean just.
No,
I
in
mean
general, less
just
range
lowered,
for
still more, but not that much more than standard archers. Because right now it's a pretty huge difference, I guess.
elite archers have more range than standard archers?
Yeah, they have quite a bit more range. You didn't know that?
Okay. Yeah, I thought, for example, Galadrim have way more range than Lorien archers.
I mean, Galadrim is a special case, because I think Lorien archers already have more range
Okay.
than normal standard archers, and Galadrim used to have lower range, actually.
Okay.
But up until like 4.5.3, I think they had lower range since.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I
least.
first thought you actually would say that elite archers should have less range than the normal archers. Okay, but yeah, that's
Nah,
actually
that would be probably too much, maybe.
I think it would be actually okay if you just have as range as the normal
The same
archer.
range.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe more damage would already be worth it, like. And then maybe you could have some like super special archers which have more range, like Lorien with longbows or Kara Skeleton. Or Lindon maybe. But I guess maybe that could work out as well, right?
Yeah, well, I think elite archers shouldn't have more range, but the heroic archers should.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
In general, I guess the goal is to like both make just a cumulation of like several battalions together, not too strong, while keeping some strength in the normal in like single battalions of archers, so that you can have archers as a utility without having archers in a clump too strong, which of course is not easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is called Archer Clump, so you also could add just a little bit more splash damage in order to make them split, or that you at least need to micro a little bit more. If you compare it maybe to the most competitive 1v1 game StarCraft, you have so much AoE, you just run into storms if you clump your army. So, but yeah, maybe that's actually a way, but obviously you need to change the spell or maybe some heroes, so that's maybe
that would be not an easy change to do.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. I guess balancing usually isn't easy.
Yeah, I think you also need to watch out to not over nerf them, because
exactly.
we nerfed, as the Eden team nerfed the Cuff, I think they already over nerfed them, so we obviously need to test that first before the new version comes out. So it's actually difficult at the moment because it affects every matchup at the moment, because archers are very important. So
yeah. Other than that, I guess rebuffing the carry a little bit, maybe. How to buff them is a little bit harder though. I'm not sure. What about maybe, I don't know. I think the trample reduction, the speed reduction by trampling is probably fixed per unit. It probably can't be changed for single units. But I don't know. I mean, it's just a guess. But if it could be, then maybe you could make it so that archers give less trample reduction.
Maybe, or that they don't slow down that fast if you trample archers. But not sure if that is possible. Maybe also that the horse shield upgrades for the riders should give a way more significant buff against archers, because if you realistically, obviously, if you have a shield in your hand and obviously your
Yes.
the archers can't hit you.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
maybe that's and that they don't do that much damage until you have fire arrows, because realistically they would burn down the shield. So maybe
I mean,
that's a way.
realistically, fire arrows wouldn't probably be used like
Yeah, sure.
ever, but
Yeah. Well, to burn down buildings.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But that may be a way.
Yeah, that could also be, I guess, having the cavalry be able to be a bit more specialized against archers then. And if your opponent doesn't make archers, then you don't need that necessarily. I mean, right now it gives like against pikes and swords. Against swords, they're usually already strong enough. Against pikes, they usually already die anyways.
Yeah, I mean, in 4.5.1, archers just used to be a counter to the pikes in order to focus the pikes and trample the rest with the cavalry. But if cavalry is useless, you don't use them for pikes.
I mean, elite archers were already strong then. I mean, they were.
Yeah, but I think, sorry, archers should be to focus something and not to kill all at once without doing microing anything.
Yeah, I guess either like focusing or maybe kiting, like harassing the army.
It should be hard to kill something, or at least not. I mean, if you watch it from other games,
if you have an advantage, then different. But or if you have a sizable, bigger army, then of course, they should still win. But yeah, I see what you mean. Maybe that's right. So yeah, but it's not easy. I think maybe like the range reduction is probably a good idea in general. Yeah, the cav buff. Other than that, in general there are some fortresses which are too easy to defend with like little. That's an indirect like nerf to the Archer Clumps, I would say, if that would be changed.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think that's
it.
Quite a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it for this episode. Of course, if you, the viewer, has any ideas, input on this topic, you can write it in the comments if you want to. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'd like to thank you, Luke, for being here.
No problem. It was a pleasure.
On such short notice. And I hope you tune in next time. And until then, have a nice time.